So the first rule is we have 6 discussion on firearms and as a raffle prize, with Commissioner Lawson is leading that discussion.
So thank you, Chair Levy. After our discussion of firearms as raffle prizes last month, during that discussion, I was looking at WAC 230.06.025, which is our regulation on restrictions on firearms as prizes. And based on our discussion last month and the comments that were submitted by the public prior to that discussion, it seems to me that we can make some very minor changes to our regulation that would tighten it up a little bit, bring it more in line with how these raffles are actually being conducted in Washington state, and actually bring it in line with other state statutes. So WAC 230.06.025 says only charitable or nonprofit organizations operating a raffle may award firearms, air guns, or other mechanical devices which are capable of discharging dangerous projectiles, including but not limited to BB or CO2 guns, rifles, shotguns, pistols, or revolvers, or crossbows as a prize. If the prize awarded is restricted from transfer by state or federal law, the licensee must award the winner a certificate redeemable by a licensed firearms dealer for the prize offered. So I see 3 ways that we can make some small changes to this regulation that will, like I said, sort of tighten it up, bring it more in line with how these raffles are actually being conducted in Washington state, and also bring it in line with the state statutes. The first is that the regulation as it's written does not limit the certificate that's redeemable by a licensed firearm dealer to a Washington state dealer. And I think that that point needs to be clarified in regulation. The second item is that it doesn't limit the firearms that are available as prizes to only those firearms that are authorized for sale in Washington state. So it would be only a firearm authorized for sale in Washington state and a certificate that's only authorized, certificate that is from a Washington state licensed dealer. And then the third item is that this regulation doesn't prohibit persons who are not permitted to own firearms in this state from winning a firearm in a raffle. My most immediate thought was to a domestic violence offender who has had their right to own firearms restricted by the state legislature under 9.41.040. And so I think that we need to include in there that someone who is prohibited from owning a firearm in Washington state may not win a firearm as a prize under our regulations. That being said, we do still need to ensure that that person, if they are the winner in some raffle of a firearm and they are not allowed to own a firearm, that they still have some prize that they are allowed to receive. So the flip side of that is, of course, we need to ensure that if a prohibited person does win a firearm in a raffle, that they are not allowed to have the firearm, but that they are allowed to have a gift certificate in the amount of what the firearm would have cost or some other sort of compensation. Those are my only 3 points. So with that, I will turn it back to Chair Levy.
Great, thank you. And I do think that the point made about if they are prohibited from winning a firearm, they should be able to go back and get something of similar or equal value. But I guess with the one of awarding prohibited persons, like adding that to the rule, it seems like if the prize awarded is restricted from transfer by state or federal law, if they're prohibited under state law, doesn't that cover everything? Why do we need to change that? Maybe I misheard.
Well, I think so. If the way that I believe this works, and this is based on the comments that I read from the public in our last meeting, is that if someone wins a firearm as a prize, in a raffle, for example, they are then given a certificate that they can redeem at a firearms dealer, and then it's of course on the firearms dealer to run the background check and determine, whether or not that person is allowed to own a gun in Washington state. So in theory, this is all happening, but I think our regulation should be very clear that an individual, if you are an individual who is prohibited under state law from owning a firearm, you will not be entitled to the firearm as a prize in a raffle, regardless. So, yeah.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners?
Seemed like sensible changes, right? Just closing some minor loopholes and keeping it consistent with state regulation and law.
Yeah.
Certainly in support of that.
Okay, we will now open the public hearing and take public comment on the rules. Okay. Seeing any public comments, so
Statement, I guess we're open discussion. Is that where we're at?
sure.
Just asking. So, I don't know if this is a solution looking for a problem or not. I really don't. So I'm a little bit, rusty is probably not the right word, because I probably never have really understood or known the whole process of transfer of firearms. That's just not an area that I spend any time in. So, I mean, I don't know that I'm at this point, supportive of opening up another rules process to modify this today. I'm not going to fight it real hard, certainly, but I mean, it seems like perhaps staff could capture, lay out the process for us now, because if in fact at the firearms dealer everything is being accomplished that is being proposed, then I don't know that we would need to add that redundancy to our rule. Because if, as state laws change regarding firearms, or less restrictive, I don't know that our rules should exceed that. So, not passionate about it one way or the other, but that's how I feel right now.
All right, so are there any other questions, further discussion from commissioners? All right, we will close the public hearing on the rule change and take any motions.
Move that we initiate rulemaking to amend WAC 230-06-025 restrictions on firearms as prizes as presented.
I will second that. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Okay.
All right, motion passes 3-1.